Welcome, everyone. Today we're covering something I believe is one of the most structurally significant announcements Metaplanet has made since it adopted its Bitcoin treasury strategy. Metaplanet is acquiring Siiibo Securities, a registered Type I financial instruments business operator in Japan, and rebranding it as Metaplanet Securities. This isn't just about adding a new subsidiary. It's about Metaplanet transforming from a Bitcoin holder into a full stack Bitcoin native financial platform. Let me walk you through exactly what that means. This acquisition signals a strategic inflection point. Until now, Metaplanet's model has been primarily capital markets driven, raising money to buy more Bitcoin. With Metaplanet Securities, they gain the regulatory infrastructure to originate, structure, and distribute Bitcoin linked financial products directly. That's a fundamentally different business model. Before we go any further, I want to flag the legal disclaimer on this slide. The plans and product concepts discussed today, including digital credit, security tokens, and BTC linked products, are current intentions and projections. They are not guarantees. Regulatory approvals, market conditions, and execution timelines can all affect outcomes. Please treat everything in this presentation as forward looking and conduct your own due diligence. This is not financial advice. I would also appreciate it if you could click the like and subscribe button as it motivates me to produce more content. Let's start with the foundation. As of June 12, 2026, Metaplanet holds 40,177 Bitcoin on its balance sheet. That makes it the number one Bitcoin holder in Asia and the number three globally among publicly listed companies. And critically, it is the only non-U.S. company in the global top 10. In Japan specifically, Metaplanet commands approximately 87% of all Bitcoin held by listed Japanese companies. It dominates Japan's corporate Bitcoin ownership base almost entirely. This Bitcoin position is the engine for everything that follows. Think of it like a central bank's gold reserves. It's the asset base that gives credibility to every financial product Metaplanet plans to build on top of it. You cannot launch Bitcoin-backed yield products without first having a substantial Bitcoin balance sheet. Metaplanet has that, and at scale. Now to the main announcement. Metaplanet is acquiring 100% of the shares of Siiibo Securities Co. Limited for a total consideration of approximately 2.1 billion Japanese yen, or about 13 million US dollars. The transaction is expected to close in August 2026. Upon completion, Siiibo Securities will be renamed Metaplanet Securities and will operate as a wholly owned subsidiary. What's critical here is the regulatory asset Metaplanet is acquiring, a Type I financial instruments business operator registration under Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act. That's the key license that allows a firm to structure and distribute financial products to the public. $13 million is a remarkably small price for a regulated securities license in Japan. Obtaining a Type I FIB registration from scratch can take years of regulatory process. Metaplanet effectively just bought a fast track into Japan's regulated financial system. From a capital allocation perspective, this looks like exceptional value relative to the strategic optionality it unlocks. This slide captures Metaplanet's core ambition in a single sentence: yield and return, powered by Bitcoin. For decades, Japanese investors have struggled to find meaningful yield. Interest rates have been near zero or below, Household savings have effectively stagnated in bank deposits, earning almost nothing. Metaplanet Securities is positioning itself as the platform that delivers a new category of yield product, one that is backed not by government debt or corporate credit ratings, but by Bitcoin. This is a genuinely novel pitch for Japanese retail and institutional investors. The narrative is powerful. You don't have to buy Bitcoin directly to benefit from its growth. Instead, you can invest in a regulated JPY denominated yield product that is backed by one of the largest Bitcoin treasuries in Asia. That's a much lower friction entry point for conservative Japanese capital. This slide puts the commercial opportunity in stark numerical perspective. Japan's household assets are sitting in approximately 1,190 trillion yen of low yield or zero yield instruments. That includes roughly 1,140 trillion in cash and bank deposits, 25 trillion in money market funds and monthly distribution products, 18 trillion in retail Japanese government bonds, and 10 trillion in straight corporate bonds held by households. As Japan transitions from decades of deflation toward a new inflationary environment, that capital is starting to move. It is looking for yield. Metaplanet Securities wants to be the destination. To put 1,190 trillion yen into perspective, that's approximately 7.4 trillion US dollars. Even capturing a fraction of 1% of that capital inflow into Bitcoin backed products would represent an enormous business. The structural tailwind here is real. Rising Japanese inflation, a weakening yen, and the Bank of Japan's gradual policy normalization are all nudging household money toward yield seeking behavior for the first time in a generation. This slide maps the three-stage build-out of Metaplanet's Bitcoin financial ecosystem. Stage 1 is track record, the M&A and new entity formation already completed. That includes the planned acquisition of Siiibo Securities for securities functions, the establishment of Metaplanet Asset Management for product management, and Metaplanet Ventures for sourcing deals and issuers. Stage 2 is integration, consolidating these entities under one Metaplanet Inc. umbrella so that origination, distribution, management, and investment all operate as a single coordinated platform. Stage 3 is expansion, pursuing additional regulatory registrations in areas like crypto asset exchange, OTC derivatives, custody, lending, and asset management, while building out payments infrastructure and broader securities distribution. What I find analytically compelling here is that Metaplanet is building this ecosystem piece by piece in a deliberate, sequential way. They're not trying to do everything at once. They have acquired the regulatory license they need first and are then layering capabilities on top. That's a disciplined corporate development approach that reflects genuine capital markets experience at the management level. This slide shows what the finished platform looks like when it's operational. On the left, you have the capital inflows, household savings, institutional fixed income mandates, and digital asset investors, all flowing into the platform. In the center is the Bitcoin native financial platform itself, and on the right are the product outputs, BTC-backed yield instruments, digital credit, preferred shares, security tokens, stablecoin payments, and Bitcoin-powered lending and credit. The total addressable market, as we've seen, is approximately 7.4 trillion US dollars. The three structural drivers pulling capital toward this platform are inflation hedging, the escape from ultra-low yield deposits, and the growing adoption of digital assets. What's notable here is the breadth of the product suite. Metaplanet isn't just trying to sell one Bitcoin product. It is building a full financial infrastructure layer, the way a fintech company would, but with Bitcoin at the center instead of fiat currency. If successful, this becomes a genuinely differentiated financial institution, not just another Bitcoin treasury company. This slide connects the two sides of Metaplanet's business. On the left is the Bitcoin treasury side, strategic accumulation of Bitcoin, BTC, yield generation, income generation through option strategies, and balance sheet strengthening. On the right is Project Nova, the Bitcoin native financial platform. Key initiatives include digital native securities distribution, provision of BTC financial products, custody infrastructure, lending services, and payment infrastructure expansion. The target vision is to become one of Japan's largest, globally competitive integrated financial platforms with Bitcoin at its core. This is where the flywheel logic becomes clear. The Bitcoin treasury generates credibility and balance sheet strength. Project Nova generates operating cash flow. That cash flow is then reinvested to buy more Bitcoin, which strengthens the balance sheet further, which enables more financial product issuance. More BTC leads to more cash flow, which leads to more BTC. That compound loop is the core investment thesis. This slide is the most important one in the deck from a shareholder value perspective. It maps the full loop: stack, flow, reinvest, grow. First, Metaplanet stacks Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Second, the BTC native finance platform generates operating cash flow, specifically through Bitcoin income generation and the Project Nova product suite. Third, that cash flow is reinvested, used to fund preferred share dividends, expand preferred share issuance capacity, and acquire additional Bitcoin. Fourth, the result is compound growth in Bitcoin per share. The mantra at the bottom of the slide says it all: more BTC, more cash flow, more BTC. Bitcoin per share is the single most important metric for evaluating a Bitcoin treasury company. It tells you whether shareholder value is being created or diluted. What Metaplanet is describing here is a mechanism to grow Bitcoin per share, not just through direct purchases, but through operating cash flow generated by the financial platform. That's a materially more capital efficient model than simply issuing equity or debt to buy more Bitcoin. If they execute on this, it could be genuinely transformative for the stock's long term trajectory. Let's look at what Metaplanet is actually acquiring. Siiibo Securities was founded in 2019 and is headquartered in Tokyo. It operates as an independent Type I financial instruments business operator, running an online platform for privately placed corporate bonds. Traditionally, corporate bonds in Japan, particularly private placements, were only accessible to institutions and high net worth investors. Siiibo democratized that access, building an end-to-end digital platform that allows retail investors to participate. To date, Siiibo has supported over 40 companies and more than 100 bond issues, building all the key capabilities in-house: issuer sourcing, structuring, distribution, and account administration. This is a well-chosen acquisition target. Siiibo isn't just a regulatory shell, it has real operational infrastructure and a track record of completing bond transactions at scale. For Metaplanet, This means they aren't starting from zero. They are acquiring a functioning fintech securities platform and pivoting its product suite toward Bitcoin. The integration timeline should be faster than building from scratch. The presentation outlines 5 expected synergies from this acquisition. First, providing high quality financial products to Metaplanet's approximately 250,000 shareholders, a ready made distribution base. Second, using Metaplanet's existing capital markets access, equity issuances, warrants, bonds, to fund growth at Metaplanet Securities through capital injections or intragroup loans. Third, having Metaplanet Securities distribute BTC-linked financial products as a licensed Type Y operator to existing customers. Fourth, collaborating with Metaplanet Ventures on sourcing bond issuers, particularly among crypto asset and DeFi related companies. Fifth, using Metaplanet Securities as the regulated distribution arm for digital financial products, including security tokens structured by the broader Metaplanet group. Synergy number 1 is often underappreciated. 250,000 existing Metaplanet shareholders represent a pre-qualified distribution list of investors who already have conviction in Bitcoin. Converting even a fraction of them into customers of Metaplanet Securities for preferred shares, bonds, or BTC-backed yield products is a materially lower cost distribution model than building a retail investor base from scratch. This slide lays out the 3-pillar product strategy under Project Nova. Product Category 1 is digital credit, BTC-backed perpetual preferred shares. These are designed for stable, predictable JPY yield, backed by Metaplanet's 40,177 Bitcoin treasury and its growing operating profit base. The primary target market is Japanese institutional fixed income mandates and yield-oriented households. Product Category 2 is asset management, disciplined structuring and distribution of BTC-related yield products through Metaplanet Asset Management, which has been established in the US with a Japan rollout planned in phases. Critically, this sits independent of Metaplanet's own balance sheet, operating on a true fiduciary basis. The distribution platform is Metaplanet Securities itself, responsible for pushing these instruments into the Japanese market, with additional infrastructure registrations planned across crypto asset exchange, custody, lending, and asset management. The independence of the asset management arm is strategically important. By keeping Metaplanet Asset Management separate from the parent balance sheet, it can serve third-party clients without conflicts of interest. That opens up a much larger addressable market, including institutional investors who might be precluded from investing in products tied to a single company's balance sheet. This slide addresses a question that sophisticated investors always ask. Does the management team have the credibility and relationships to execute? On capital, Metaplanet has direct relationships with sovereign wealth funds, global pension funds, and major institutional asset managers. The fundraising pipeline channels international capital into the domestic Japanese market. On expertise, the core management and board team are alumni of global investment banks and major Japanese financial institutions, with integrated experience across equities, derivatives, structured products, balance sheet management, and asset management. The audit committee includes professionals from Deloitte Tohmatsu. On network, Metaplanet has operational relationships with the global Bitcoin Treasury network, including strategy, and direct access to U.S. digital asset infrastructure, including qualified custodians, derivatives exchanges, and prime brokers. This is one of the most underappreciated aspects of Metaplanet's positioning. Many Bitcoin treasury companies are operationally competent but lack deep capital markets expertise. Metaplanet is attempting to bridge two worlds: the Bitcoin native ecosystem and traditional institutional finance. That combination, if credibly executed, is genuinely rare globally, and it creates a real competitive moat. This final strategy slide contextualizes Metaplanet's ambitions within Japan's national policy agenda, and it's a compelling alignment. Japan's new NISA framework encourages household savings to shift into investments. Metaplanet's digital credit preferred shares provide a regulated, yen denominated yield product that fits squarely within that shift. Japan's Financial and Asset Management Special Zone aims to attract overseas institutional capital. Metaplanet is doing exactly that through its global IR activities and plans to host Bitcoin Conference Japan in 2028 on the revised Payment Services Act and stablecoin framework. Metaplanet is already invested in JPYC, Japan's leading JPY stablecoin. On crypto asset regulatory reform, as Japan's largest Bitcoin holding company, Metaplanet is a natural contributor to policy discussions on how corporations can hold digital assets on balance sheets, and on Tokyo's ambition to become Asia's digital finance hub. Metaplanet's integrated platform directly positions Tokyo competitively against Singapore and Hong Kong. Policy alignment is often dismissed as corporate PR, but in Japan's regulatory environment, it matters enormously. Companies that operate in harmony with government priorities get faster license approvals, more cooperative regulatory dialogue, and greater institutional trust. Metaplanet isn't just describing what it wants to do, it's describing why Japanese regulators should want it to succeed. This slide addresses governance, and it's thorough. Metaplanet operates under five pillars: professionalism, independent external audit and committee structure, near real time disclosure, comprehensive risk management, and strict counterparty discipline. The board and management team come from global investment banking and major domestic institutions. The audit committee includes multiple Deloitte Tomatsu audit professionals. Independent directors hold a majority on every committee. On disclosure, the balance sheet is updated in near real time, which is extraordinary for a listed company. Key revenue metrics are disclosed promptly after each quarterly earnings release in both Japanese and English. For international investors evaluating Metaplanet as a Bitcoin treasury company, this governance section matters more than it might seem. Bitcoin treasury companies in general suffer from reputational risk because the asset class is still associated with opacity and volatility. Metaplanet is going out of its way to operate like an institutional grade financial firm. That is the right approach if the goal is to attract sovereign funds, pension allocators, and global asset managers. Taken together, what Metaplanet has announced today is a genuine strategic transformation. This is not a company adding a side product. It is building an integrated Bitcoin native financial ecosystem with the regulatory infrastructure, the capital markets access, the management expertise, and the Bitcoin balance sheet to back it up. The key question I'm watching is execution speed. The regulatory approvals, product launches, and distribution ramp up all need to happen in sequence. But the strategic architecture here is sound, and the alignment with Japan's macroeconomic and policy environment is real. More Bitcoin, more cash flow, more Bitcoin. That's the loop. And Metaplanet Securities is the engine they've just added to accelerate it. I hope you found today's information helpful. Thank you, and have a nice day.